Well, time once again for a meeting of the Northern New England chapter of SABR. I'm the chapter chair, Bruce McLaurin. I'd like to welcome everybody to our Diamond Discourse format for this evening. It's Hall of Fame election night. We're going to see who's going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame this summer, along with Fred McGriff. We've got a nice crowd here tonight. We're going to have a great discussion of the Hall of Fame, some trivia, some general baseball discussion as we go. Should be a great evening, but I wanted to make, Dixie's already got his man right there. He's banking on Scotty Rowley tonight. I'm with him. I'm with you, Dixie. I wanted to make a couple of announcements before we get started, because something came out today that I thought would be very interesting to a lot of folks. A call for papers has been announced for SABR 51. As you all know, SABR 51 is in Chicago at the Palmer House, July 5th through the 9th this year. And the call for papers has been put up. Oral presentations are expected to last about 20 minutes, followed by a 5-minute question and answer period. Posters will be presented with the author on hand to discuss the work during a poster session of 60 minutes, and they'll remain on display throughout the convention. If you go to SABR's website, sabr.org, and click into the latest news, the first thing right up top there is the call for papers, and you can see the procedure for that. Second thing I wanted to go over this evening real quick is that on January 12th, the board of directors came out with a recommendation for a change to the SABR bylaws. That was posted last week in the This Week in SABR email. The special election on those changes will begin Wednesday, February 15th, 2023. The changes to the bylaws are intended to increase member participation in SABR governments, add new voices to board discussion, allow for more turnover in board membership, and provide safeguards to ensure that the 4 officers have some prior board experience. You will see those changes in the This Week in SABR email that came out last week. It is archived at sabr.org. The board of directors is proposing an expansion, adding 2 seats. And they are recommending that this change to the bylaws be overwhelmingly accepted. So when you get a chance, have a look at that. If you have any questions on how to find it, send me an email and I'm happy to do it. Happy to help you out with that. So we are now just waiting. I've got my little tablet set up next to me for the announcement, but I can't put it on the screen as I'm recording because that's a little bit of a copyright violation. I could get myself in a little bit of trouble for that. So we're not going to do that this evening. But I'm going to turn it over to you guys. What do you think about tonight?
Gary, you're on mute.
Who we got tonight?
I think we're overwhelmed by the excitement of the possibilities.
Well,
I would be happy if Scott Rowland got in. Or, you know, I'm always happy when anybody gets in.
You know,
just so somebody gets in. That's what I'm hoping for.
I happen to be looking at the baseball reference page for Scott Rowland, and his Hall of Fame monitor for batting is number 99, which a likely Hall of Famer is 100. So he's right there. And for Hall of Fame standards, it says batting is 40 and the average is 50. So, you know, and he was trending up, so he might have a decent shot to get in tonight.
What website was that you were looking at, Jeff?
Baseball reference?
You're at Baseball Reference.
I emailed my friend in Cooperstown, Bill Dean. And Bill Dean used to be the Hall of Fame librarian. He works as the stat guy for Baseball Digest. I get to play golf with him in the summertime. And he has been right about the vote almost dead on for the last 25 years. So I emailed him last night and he emailed me this morning and said, you can check my vote that I passed in, that I wrote everybody last November.
Huh.
And his vote was that Scott Rowland would just make it in and that Todd Helton would just make it out. He would be a couple votes short and Billy Wagner would be a
Oh.
couple more votes short. But he was picking only Rowland as the guy who would make it tonight.
Red Sox legend Billy Wagner.
Hmm.
All 11 innings of it. They were effective though. They were 11 effective innings. I had forgotten that he played for the Red Sox until I looked him up today. I had to.
He played a lot better for a lot of other people.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
What year was that, Bruce?
Oh, don't ask me questions I'm supposed to remember, Eric. That's
Sorry.
not fair. Jeff, help me out. You're on Baseball Reference right now. It was the tail end of his career. When did he retire?
It must have been. Yeah, I'm looking right now. This looks like 2010.
Okay.
He pitched, I think, at 10 or 11
Yeah,
innings.
2009 he pitched for Boston, and 2010 he pitched for Atlanta.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Yep, yep. There's Andy. Andy Hickroth just jumped in. He and I met at SABR 51. I'm happy to see him come in tonight. Hopefully he's going to turn on his camera so I can see him.
I would, but I'm in a study room at the library I work at, and for some reason it's not working as well as I would hope. I'll tell you what, I'll send selfies to Molly. How's that?
It's a great turnout. We appreciate everybody tonight. Hey, any other thoughts on who's getting in this evening? I'm interested to hear your thoughts, everyone.
Surprised by Todd Helton's how big he's jumped, because I've always feared that because he played his whole career with Coors, that people would be like, no, that would be a handicap for him like it was with Larry Walker. So I'm happy to see Todd Helton do well.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Because having spent 10 years in Colorado, I got to see Todd Helton frequently at the games. And so I'm wishing him well with this. He's had some challenges since he left baseball, but he was a great guy and a real team player. And, you know, Coors Field always gets a bad rap, unfortunately. So I hope he can pull it out.
So I don't know if anybody follows this Hall of Fame tracker on Twitter from Ryan Thibodeau.
It's
He's a
brilliant.
tracker. So right now, he just posted this a minute ago. He has Scott Rowland as for the public votes of 80.7% and Todd Helton at 78.7%. So that's of the public vote. Look.
It'll be interesting to see how this shakes out. Hi, Liz. How are you?
Doing pretty well.
I see Mike Whiteman as well. Mike, nice to have you in tonight. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate you coming out. You know, I happened to see an interview today with Clint Hurdle. He had a lot to say about the candidacy of those who played in Colorado. And his thought is, if we're going to hold the ballpark against the player, then possibly the Rockies need to move. Because you can't hold the ballpark against the player. They've allowed, it's a major league ballpark. What's the big deal?
And Todd Helton split.
Here's Josh. Let me see if I can. I think they're going to commercial because, of course, they got to pay a couple of bills and then they're going to come back and make an announcement. Yeah, they're going to pay a couple of bills and then they're going to come back and make the announcement.
Todd Helton is actually pretty good on the road as well. So with I saw some stats for him. He was better on the road than some of the Hall of Famers in there with Dave Winfield, with Ricky Henderson, better OPS and other numbers on the road.
MLB Network was talking about that last night about his numbers on the road, and they were very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't hold the ballpark against it. I'm sorry. It's
you can't.
Ballpark. They've approved it. I can't wave a magic wand and change the atmosphere in Colorado. And frankly, I can't change how the ball jumps in New Yankee Stadium either.
Well, yeah. Are you going to pick Babe Ruth out of the Hall of Fame because they built Yankee Stadium with a 291-foot porch for him to aim at?
There you go. There you go. That the fooling around with ballpark dimensions is a tale as old as time. And we're seeing a few ballparks that are changing again this year.
Yep.
With Toronto and Detroit having moved the fences a little bit.
Yeah.
Andy,
What is Toronto doing? I heard about Detroit, but what is Toronto doing?
Toronto has a wholesale renovation of Sky Dome beginning, and they're going to move the fences in. And if I recall correctly, center field is 397 now in Sky Dome.
They're moving City Field fences also in right field.
Yes. Yep. City Field's being changed as well.
Wasn't the old Baker Bowl really like short in like right field or something like that? I think I read something about like Chuck Klein or someone
Yeah.
like that.
Oh, yeah,
Really-
yeah. That's what,
really
definitely.
That's why we remember Chuck Klein.
Yep.
Chuck, Baker Bowl and League Park in Cleveland.
Okay, yeah.
They were built on city blocks. So they had a really long left field, a cavernous center field, and like a ridiculous right field.
Mhm.
Andy just posted in the chat about the deadline for papers. I spoke about how the call for papers for SABR 51 came out. For national pastime, I'm not sure. I haven't seen that yet. I'd have to go back, but I can email you if you want, Andy.
All right, sounds good.
So we've just gone back to Cooperstown here. You'll be happy to know that amazingly, it looks like it's snowing there. And here we go. See, I can't have this on the screen and I can't rebroadcast this for obvious reasons. But
Please.
Josh and Brian Kenny, who is a SABR member, are in the plaque gallery in Cooperstown right now.
It's been snowing in Cooperstown for a couple days.
What a surprise.
Yeah, right.
Molly and I went on our honeymoon to Cooperstown in 2017, and it was the coldest week of our lives. To the point where I thought I was going to freeze my car battery.
How cold are we talking?
What's that?
How cold are we talking? Cold are we?
Near zero every day.
Wow. That's
Oh,
cool.
wow.
It was amazing.
That'll freeze the car battery.
Yes, it will. Here we go.
Scott Rowland.
Yep.
Yep.
Just got the
Roll.
Twitter
I'm
notification.
a little
I'm
behind.
not gonna make-
So if they do it in alphabetical order, then it's just rolling.
So Roland got in?
Yep. Yep.
Catherine's a little ahead of me on my TV. So Roland got in?
Mhm.
Yep.
Yes,
Just Roland.
just Rowland.
So it'll be Roland and Fred McGriff in Cooperstown in July, being inducted into the Hall of Fame. They're going to get their plaques. I'd like to congratulate Dixie.
Mhm.
His man got in.
Mhm.
And Bill Dean, who's right again.
And
He's
Bill
been
Dean is
for-
right
He's
again.
been
There
right
you
for
go.
25 years.
He's the plaque whisperer.
He is.
Yep. So yeah, he's on my TV announcing it now, so I can. Yep. There we go. So Scott Rowland.
Well,
Elected
Doug, you noticed my email address is Mando3B.
yes.
I like third base,
Mhm.
so I'm very happy. Third base has been underrepresented.
Yep.
I'm very happy that Scott Rowland got in.
So that's a, so that means that Helton fell off toward the end again. And I just shut this down, but I'll be interested to see what the final totals are. I don't know if anybody's got anything on their screen that can.
Well, fall off is, it depends on how far he fell off. If he gained from last year, that's a good sign.
That's a good point. That's a good point. But as of about, an hour and a half ago, we're recording this at 6:15. He was still above the 75% threshold, which I thought was very interesting. Wagner was trending just below at about 72, 73, if I recall, which he's picked up as well.
And it looks like Jeff Kent is off the Hall of Fame ballot now.
Yes, that's true. Kent it's now up to the committees for Kent.
Yep. And Billy Wagner got 68.1%.
Wow.
So this is from Joel Sherman from the New York Post. Scott Rowland finished with 76.3, and Todd Helton missed by 11 votes, 72.2.
Oh,
so Helton slid in to the hall by a couple of votes.
Somebody made the point that the voting, if certain people didn't vote but cast their ballots, that would make the vote a different percentage. And that might have cost Helton the percentage in time.
Yep, that's true. People send in blank votes.
Yep.
Yeah, that drives
blank
me
ballots,
nuts.
I should say.
Some people just vote for one person and that's it.
The blank ballot thing drives me absolutely nuts. If you're going to send in a blank ballot, I'm of the opinion, if you send in a blank one, you should have your credentials revoked.
Exactly.
Yeah, me too.
Absolutely.
I'm in favor of them just abstaining from voting. If you don't want to vote for anybody, just don't, just stay.
Really.
Right.
Honestly, maybe changing it is needed too, because there's a lot of talk in my research about how the writers are actually conflicted even for the steroid era. It became an issue.
Yeah, that's true. I've always, now I don't understand, and maybe one of you can enlighten me. I've never understood why TV play-by-play guys cannot vote, or not extended that privilege.
I agree. We think the national guys would be able to vote. I think it should be open up to more than just the writers now, because look, back in the day, that's all they did was the writers, because they're the ones who saw that all the games. Now, with Bob Costas should have a vote, right?
Yes,
absolutely.
Not to mention, there's actually a lot of writers whose employers don't even allow them to vote on their own company ethical guidelines.
Isn't the New York Times one of them, Liz?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the Baltimore Sun is as well.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yes, you're right.
As I from what I've heard, a lot of people who can vote don't cover baseball anymore.
Yes.
And would you believe I play softball with one of them? I do. Adam Rubin is a Hall of Fame Hall of Fame voter. He used to cover the Mets for ESPN and Newsday back in the day. He still has voting privileges. I think he stopped covering baseball, 5 or 6 years ago. But he has seen these guys play who's on the ballot, so I guess he has some knowledge of whether they should be, voted on or not. I'm not sure when they'll take away his vote. I think you have to be away from the game, 10 years or something? But yeah, he still votes.
That's very good. I'm beginning to come around to the idea that so we have the writers that are out there voting. In a lot of cases, they're not paying attention like they used to, and they're voting for a lot of their favorites, which I'm sure happened over the years. But the expansion of the voting should take place not only for television and radio guys, but and Jeff, I'm going to gear this toward you now, so I'm hoping to get a comment from you on this. There's an awful lot of people who are providing content and analysis online through their own podcast network.
Well, yeah, and like I don't propose to be a voter, although I have my own, my own in my head. But there are a lot of people who do provide content. A lot of writers, online writers, internet writers. You see all these blogs, and they cover all the teams. And maybe they should have a vote. I know there's a group out there. I think they're aligned with SABR, the Internet Writers of Association of America.
Internet Baseball Writers Association.
No, it's called the Internet Baseball Writers of. They're not officially. Yeah, that's the one. IBWAA. They have their unofficial vote, but maybe they should be able to vote as a voting member.
They can't.
No, I know they're not. But
yeah, no, I'm part of the IBWA.
Oh, you are?
It's not a. It's started by two guys. I've been a member for a while. I write for the newsletter. It's way different than SABR, having just joined SABR.
Yeah, sure.
And IBWA is created by two guys, and they,
But they do have a lot of writers who do provide
a lot of
writers
who generate a lot of content, and including their newsletter, and then anybody who joins it, podcast writers, video. And really anybody that writes it here, I'll find that.
Yeah, and they do have their unofficial vote for themselves, and they
do. Yeah. They do.
Honestly, in my opinion, it needs to be restructured more so than just changing who is voting for the Hall of Fame. I mean, the process of mail-in ballots alone bothers me, considering the technology we have today. But it's the only way we've known. But I know the Football Hall of Fame does like a stages way of Hall of Fame voting.
Liz, how would you propose changing the method of voting?
I mean, beyond the physical voting method, because every time a writer was posting their ballot and it had the folds that go into the envelope, I'm going, we're really still doing this by mail, okay? But besides that, I still have to kind of look into it. I haven't started researching the other leagues yet, but I started looking into it. But I feel like it needs to be different than just a straight percentage vote, because there's a lot of aspects that are being ignored.
Such as?
I think it's getting better now that there are newer people in the younger analytics based writers are getting in there, because there's a lot of players that are getting in with these committees that weren't considered by the voters initially at all, because analytics didn't exist. They didn't look as good on paper as some of the other players, but then they look back and they say, oh, well, that was different. But in general, those counting stats are still what's being looked at more so than impact and the detail.
I think Liz makes a great. I'm sorry. I think I think Liz makes a great point, especially when it comes to like Billy Wagner, because I see saves as a really flawed stat, but his other metrics, strikeouts per 9 innings and strikeout percentage, he's like second to Mariano. I mean, forget about the saves. It's Mariano and Wagner, 1-2 in most, other categories except saves.
Yeah, unfortunately, it seems like there's this overall mentality around the baseball world of just, this is the way we've always done things, which really doesn't set yourself up for long-term viability and success, unfortunately.
Yes, we seem to have a lot of we've always done it this way, and this is the way it's going to be because we like it this way. And I mean,
Liz, you saying that like mail-in ballots are still a thing? That's ridiculous. I mean, that's absurd. I mean, if you're a professional newspaper writer, you can use the internet, right?
Mm-hmm. And it would probably be more secure.
Yeah.
On the internet versus mailing somebody a piece of printer paper and then having them mail it back.
Until somebody hacks the voting system, which I bet they would do.
That's a good point too.
I will say
It's hard. It's hard, I understand all the points that everybody's making, and I agree that it needs to be revamped. But the idea that somehow the method that they're using now is archaic and not designed to, it's not designed for continued viability. That's I agree, that may very well be true, but it's a hard sell to, certainly to baseball people, MLB people who are swimming in money. And not only is their cash flow not really much of a concern to them because money is just pouring in, but their asset, they're one of the few assets in the world that's essentially guaranteed not to lose value, right? I mean, you buy a Major League Ball club, you're not buying it because you need a write-off. You're buying it because you expect that it's going to make even more money for somebody who has more money already than he knows what to do with. So we might have a long wait before any of these changes come about.
Hey, John Henry's going bankrupt, according to him, so that's why
Yeah.
he can't pay anybody.
Well, he may not be going bankrupt, but my guess is he's got a lot of shorts that he needs to cover. You don't get to be a giant hedge fund guy without taking a lot of risks, and sometimes the risks don't work. But yeah, John, it's a good to have John Henry cry poverty. As a Yankee fan, I find that hilarious. But most everything the Red Sox do, I find hilarious anyway. But what are you going to do? Yeah. Sorry, I don't want to be the skunk at the wedding here. It's like,
Wow.
Is Scott Rowland going to go in as a Philly or a Cardinal?
Oh, that's a good question. That's
Wow.
not his choice.
No, it's not his choice.
Philly fans hate him, don't they?
I
So
would
say he left. Yeah, I know love lost.
because I would hope he's a Cardinal because him and he came to St. Louis because Larry Bowa and the Phillies didn't like him, and he flourished and became part of the MV3 in 2004.
He played for Philadelphia 7 years and St. Louis 6 years, and then Cincinnati 4 years and Toronto for 2 years. So it's either Philadelphia or St. Louis. I don't know where he had the most impact. I'll always
They
remember
could
him.
do a neutral hat again, like they did for Messina.
They could.
Mhm.
I'll always remember him as hitting that ball that Andy Chavez caught at Chase Stadium.
I live
one
in
of the
the
things
Philadelphia media. Yes, I live in the
Mike, I'm
Philadelphia
sorry.
media market, and oops, I'm sorry, Bruce. Go ahead.
Nope, it's all you.
Oh, okay, no, and I live in the Philadelphia media market, and it was always amazing to me that folks did not like Scott Rowland because he was a heck of a player. So I wouldn't be surprised if he has a choice. I suspect he would be going at.
I remember they were just irrationally down on him. They couldn't wait till he left.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I remember that.
I remember that too, but I don't remember the genesis of it. What exactly happened there?
He was continuously hurt playing on that rotten infield dirt. And Larry Bowa made a case out of it, as if he was a star.
Well, Larry Bowen knows everything, of course.
Mhm.
Now, one of the things that we were discussing, and I'm going to springboard off of a couple of comments that Liz made a little while ago, was the idea that some sort of change has to happen in terms of how the Hall of Fame vote is done. Baseball is not exactly known as being one of the most progressive and easiest sports to change. Now, Eric's shaking his head. And
Oh, you're kidding.
I mean, come on, Eric. I mean, how long did the rule's been on the records for the pitch clock since what, 1950?
1950, yes.
Or so. I put that up on my Twitter account today. That was my this day in baseball history. And they now just decided to enforce it. We played with two sets of rules for an awfully long time because one half of Major League Baseball didn't like that rule. So they said, no, we're not using that rule. Whether or not you like Rob Manfred, you've seen the standardization of the rules between the leagues. You've seen this progression of shot clock, bigger bases, shift bands, these things coming into play, and they came in pretty quick. But Hall of Fame voting, that's going to be, I think, something that's going to require a mountain to be moved. Liz may be able to comment on it, maybe Kate as well, but that's going to be tough.
Well, if I may speak momentarily, the NFL Hall of Fame, I'm not an NFL person at all, but it almost seems like every year they have almost like a quota of people that go in or must go in, like 8 or 10 people. And I've always found that disturbing. It could be the World, Ping Pong Association, but I like the idea that at least every year there's some kind of standard, and you've got to almost seem like you have to fill a quota of people going in. That bothers me about the NFL. I don't understand it. I don't know their voting, so I absolutely plead ignorance. So that I find interesting. It's just it may need to be at least tweaked somewhat, but given the paper ballot, although having just worked an election in Dover, I can understand the both sides of it, where, let's move this into the 21st century, but also having the backup of the paper. It's a much smaller group, obviously, but I don't want to see a requirement of 8 or 9 guys must go in every year, which I see with the NFL, a lot of people. And yes, it's a bigger organization, but that always bothers me about that. And I would like that, I think they would need like a review, because I would have been very displeased if a Clemens or a Bonds or a Sosa or because the steroid era to me was grotesque. And I realize there are others that may have gotten in using it. So we need to do a lot of research before they would make, crazy changes.
Actually, that's kind of what I'm starting is researching. I did it in college. I did it it was 2014. So it was while Bonds was still on the ballot.
Yeah.
I do have a different point of view than you in terms of what the steroid era is, but part of that came from all of this research that I've been doing on the media portrayal and how the story is unfolding. And also it talks about the hypocrisy of previous votes ignoring this moral clause or character clause.
Then you'd get half these people would be out. I mean, this is how this gets into all these other things. But, just as far as the security of the voting itself, given the world we are in, whatever, if they need to adjust it. But I agree also about people sending in blank ballots and all that kind of stuff is then vote and just say, I'm not going to vote and not disrupt the other people's votes. I think that's something that absolutely should be addressed.
I would agree with that. And also, I think I agree with those who say just abolish the 10 player limit. Vote for whoever you want to. You don't have just a set number. As far as steroids go, my feeling has been, the counting stats are what get people in. Whatever else is going on, that's what people look at. And my rule of thumb has been okay, before Barry Bonds' head, swelled like a beach ball and he started hitting a home run every time he swung the bat, would he have gotten in the Hall of Fame?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
He already had an MVP award.
I agree with that.
Absolutely.
If they did that, I might listen. That makes sense. Exactly.
Well,
Before he got off the rails.
which begs the question: why did he even take steroids to begin with?
Right. There's a whole psychological thing, and the example and the danger of that is we didn't know that Ty Cobb now. I mean, not Ty Cobb. Yeah, these guys from years ago were not the nicest of people. So I mean, I see each era is different, but I agree. If they put Bonds and said only from this era or Clemens, that I could see that. I'd be okay with that, but they don't.
And I'm a Cubs fan. I grew up a Cubs fan. I will always be a Cubs fan. My impression of Sammy Sosa is immensely talented, but maddeningly erratic. He always tries to hit a 5-run homer or, throw the guy out at third from the right field corner and he airmails it into Iowa or something. Then all of a sudden, I'm exaggerating for effect here. I'm simplifying for effect. All of a sudden, he looks like a Greek god and starts hitting 60 home runs a year. He was not a Hall of Fame player before he started hitting 60 home runs every year. He was talented, but, had some good things, some bad things, but, he wasn't going to get into the Hall of Fame. Mark McGwire, I see him as more he would have been a borderline candidate.
I want to remind you guys, though, that a lot of these players that we're talking about were never tested positive. So, we can only say they allegedly took steroids. You can't say for a definite sure that they cheated. I mean, I always laugh with Sammy, and yeah, I'm a diehard Sammy fan, grew up watching WGN. I miss WGN syndication, but he got caught cheating, but not with steroids. He had a corked bat. That's different. Yeah, but he never tested positive. Neither did Bonds or McGuire.
Want to jump in here for a second? Jeff wants to make a comment as well. Jeff, go ahead.
I got two things. About the suspicions of steroids. Look, Mike Piazza had to wait 4 years because he had some acne, and that was ridiculous to begin with. He was always a big guy. Same with Bagwell. But I want to ask the panel question: what do you think of a Hall of Fame voter? And this is documented on on Twitter, Ryan Thibodeau's website here. There's voters who don't vote for somebody, who voted for somebody last year, didn't vote for the same person this year, and has room on their ballot. I don't understand how anybody lost any statistics, and why would that happen? Why would somebody vote for, I don't know, someone voted for Jimmy Rollins last year but didn't vote for him this year, and still has room on his ballot? Anybody think about that?
Didn't pick up the check at dinner one night. That was probably it. Eric makes a good point in the chat. After the 97 season, baseball was in trouble. During the 98 home run chase, the turnstiles were clicking and the money was flowing in. So Selig et al. Were more than willing to turn their heads. And that seems to be the narrative over the years that has come out, that a lot of people knew that this was going on. Now, I'm not an expert and I don't know, but many a book has been written, many a comment has been made about it. Liz comes out with steroids played a huge role in saving the game after the strike. And Jeremy just posted something, an ESPN story where McGuire did admit using steroids at one time. So.
And another thing that I think that gets overlooked a little bit, I think the fans have a little bit of self-righteousness about it. If you are a player who is borderline going to be able to make it in a major league career and make enough money to set up your family for the rest of your life, or you have to go not make it and work a regular job, you have to take this illegal substance that you'll probably never get caught doing, and people are like, well, I wouldn't do it, I wouldn't cheat. Nonsense. Every single person would do that.
Yeah, but that's
I know I would.
I
that'll be
mean,
the
my
borderline
research,
people, though.
my research that I did in my sophomore year was on communication theory, and I used the theory of the press, one of the 4 theories of the press, and how the media actually served as the watchdog for Major League Baseball during this time. I mean, these writers knew about it long before any. I think it was really when Ken Caminiti came out, then the writers started writing about it. The other writers that were talking about it weren't baseball writers; they were investigative journalists. And so the role there is that the media is judging them, even though it's probably not the same writers anymore. The media is judging them while they also allowed it to continue and happen. And the other thing with Seelig, a lot of the writers that I'm reading now are pointing out that Seelig is in the Hall of Fame.
Ridiculous.
I get really irritated when people dump on Seelig, because for the simple reason, what would the Players Association have done if Bud Selig said, okay, we're going to crack down on steroids right now. We're going to, eliminate that out of the game, and we're going to basically punish every player who uses steroids. The Players Association is part of this too. And, my general notion is I would vote for Bonds and Clemens in a heartbeat. But it's like, I have gotten to the point where it's like, yeah, Barry, I would vote for you. You are one of the top 10 players of all time. I would vote for you in a heartbeat. But, if you're upset about not being in the Hall of Fame, well, maybe you should have thought of that at the time.
Do we have any reason to think that Barry or Roger Clemens is upset about not being in the Hall of Fame?
I remember
Barry's been talking about it, actually. He was on one of the K-Rod casts on ESPN towards the end of the season with A-Rod, and he said he feels disappointed, but he's not pressed about it. He's like,
I wouldn't think so.
History.
I wouldn't think so.
I remember Roger Clemens. I saw this on ESPN. It was actually, he was being interviewed, and he said, well, somebody asked him, well, what, at the height of the controversy, well, what about the Hall of Fame? Do you think you'll get in the Hall of Fame? And he said angrily, I don't give a rat's ass about the Hall of Fame.
Okay, so we've got one sort of disappointed, but I can get over it, Barry Bonds, and one I couldn't possibly care less, Roger Clemens.
I don't believe Clemens.
Neither do I.
I don't think we feel that way now necessarily.
That's probably a good stance.
I think there's one thing we haven't discussed though, and Liz, this might go to your research too, is the writers might have a negative feeling about some of these players due to their personal interactions with them if they've refused interviews or they've been nasty with them, and they may not vote for these players just because of how they've treated the writers over time.
There was actually talk about that before the steroids with players like Mark McGwire. Mark McGwire hated being famous. He didn't want to talk to the press. He just wanted to play baseball. And so he rubbed writers the wrong way. And often during that home run race, Sammy was being covered more because he was interactive with the media. And so even without steroids, there were a lot of writers that didn't like Mark McGwire because he didn't want to talk to the press. It wasn't he held ill will, it was he hated being famous.
Well, and Bonds was just a crabby individual in general, and he had rubbed people the wrong way as a member of the Pirates. I remember that.
think I've heard a story about some players with the Pirates that have said some players didn't like him so much that they said that would rather lose without him than win with him.
Well, and the other thing here, what I've heard, and I'm sure you have all heard it too, when Bonds and Clemens didn't get any votes to speak of at the the veteran, what is now the Veterans Committee, whatever it's called now, a lot of people were saying it's the players, the other players, that really are angry at the people charged, accused of using steroids. It's not just the writers, it's certainly not necessarily the executives, it's the other players that really don't want to see them in the Hall of Fame.
I think it's also forgotten that we always think of these great players. Oh, but they use steroids. The majority of the league was using it. It was actually fueled by the creation of free agency. These players that were average were watching these guys slightly better than them getting signed. They had to keep up in free agency, which they didn't have to do before. So it wasn't like just Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire players. It was a good chunk of the league. I mean, Brady Anderson, there's a couple other guys that had some random seasons in there.
From what I heard, Barry Bonds got involved with steroids precisely because of Sosa and McGwire. He got angry because he knew how good he was. And here these guys were getting all this attention after, this artificial stimulus. So he decided to, to show the world, this is what a good player on steroids looks like. And the other thing, part of this is, as a young man, I could have taken steroids. I wouldn't have been able to hit up 73 home runs in a year. I wouldn't have been able, most people would not have been able to do what Bonds did in that year where he was getting all of those intentional walks. It just made him a more extreme version of the great player he already was. Not everybody can do that, even if they take steroids.
I've got to say that the rumors of my involvement with steroids, as per my postings and their rapid pace on social media, those rumors are entirely false. Just want to get that out there.
When I played in that over 45 league here in Maine, there was a lot of joking about Geritol, taking Geritol and to boost your statistics and stuff like that.
Mine is Centrum. I take a Centrum multivitamin. That's all I take. That's it. Hey, how about some trivia? I try to grab some trivia questions every time we come into a meeting like this, and I typically take them from my friends at Horsehide Trivia. They're a list where you get all sorts of great stuff on a daily, weekly basis. If you're not part of that, I can help you get into that. Send me an email and I'll link you up with Bruce Brown, who is the trivia master of SABR and is fantastic at what he does. First question, here we go. Ernie Banks. Ernie Banks did it in the National League, but who was the first American League shortstop to win more than one Most Valuable Player award?
Cal?
Sorry?
Cal Ripken?
No.
Right. That's correct.
I
Yes.
always think about it because they used to have an orange seat in left field before they moved the wall. That was when Cal Ripken passed Ernie Banks for most home runs as a shortstop. So.
She's right. Very good. Maybe Liz is. Should we have her tested? She's been on fire tonight.
I'm a Cubs and an Orioles fan. That was an easy one.
That's a good combination.
So I
I'll be
met
right
Liz at the convention in Baltimore with Andy, as a matter of fact. And when I tell you I'm overjoyed by the fact that these two are a member of SABR, I can't begin to tell you, because they're each doing some great things in research right now, and they're providing us with, for lack of better term, new young energy that it shines through. It really does. Next question. Here we go.
I had to bring the Ernie Banks figurine in that I got when I was like 8 years old.
Who has been a contestant in the modern version since 1985 of Home Run Derby more than any other player?
There's a modern version?
Yes.
Who
From
knew?
The Home Run Derby that you see every year at the
Oh,
All-Star.
that thing. Yeah. Okay. At the All-Stars break.
Yes.
Okay.
Who has been the contestant in the modern version of the Home Run Derby more than any other player? Hit number one, he was the first 30-year-old player to collect 8 runs batted in a single game in the 2000s.
Manny Ramirez?
No.
Was it David Ortiz?
No.
The polar bear?
No.
Not 30 yet.
Griffey?
Yes.
And Griffey.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Griffey was a contestant in 90, 92, 93, 94, 97, 98, 99, and 2000, winning it 3 times.
Wow. Yeah.
He won in 94, 98, and 99. Both of those are records.
And he hit the warehouse.
That he did.
Who was the last surviving whiz kid?
Oh, he just died not too long ago.
I remember.
That is a hint. He just
No,
passed.
Kurt Simmons.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. The 1950s Phillies were nicknamed the Whiz Kids because of the youth of their stars. Simmons was born in Egypt, Pennsylvania. And interestingly enough, he was one of only 2 major league players born in Egypt. Simmons was born in Egypt, Pennsylvania, and my uncle Bob, not really, Bob McClure, was born in Egypt, Texas. Growing up, I used to like to joke about having watching my Uncle Bob pitch on television when McClure was pitching for Milwaukee and a few other teams. The punchline of it is, my dad had a brother, Robert. He was my Uncle Bob. Who was the first Atlanta Braves pitcher to have 3 consecutive 20-win seasons in the expansion era?
The great Maddox.
No, it's not Maddox.
Still
Bill
Negro?
Negro?
Schmaltz?
It's not Smoltz.
Negro?
It's not
Negro?
Negro.
Glavin. No, not Glavin.
Well, wait a minute. What was that?
Well,
Glavin.
Glavin. Who said-
Glavin, yeah, from Glavin. Also drafted into the NHL. Yes.
That's right.
Massachusetts guy.
That's right. That's right. That's right. 91, 92, and 93, Glavin won 20, 20, and 22.
It
Never
still bothers me that Schmaltz played 1 more year, and otherwise that Hall of Fame induction would have been all 3 of the Braves pitchers and their manager. But Schmaltz had to play 1 more year.
I would have loved that.
And
Yeah.
you'll never see that again. 3
No.
straight 21 seasons. Although, Liz, I would say that the Cardinals have a chance of doing that with Pujols, Molina, and Wainwright. Maybe going to the same year.
Wainwright is playing this year, though.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Yes, he said he was coming back.
Okay.
Which Hall of Famer's first World Series at bat resulted in a home run off another future Hall of Famer immediately after his teammate, another first ballot Hall of Famer, had already homered? Don't blame me for these questions.
Andrew Jones.
What's that?
Andrew Jones?
No, it's not. Here's a hint. No player in Major League Baseball history has played more seasons for one team.
Yogi Berra?
No.
Brooks.
Yes, it's Brooke Robinson.
Oh, gee.
So here's the scenario. Brooksy homered off Don Drysdale on October 5th, 1966, in the top of the first, after the two-run homer by Frank Robinson. So that was the scenario of the question.
That is a great question.
Yeah, that
is the
I
best.
can't take credit for any of these questions, but boy, they're good.
Oh, so many of the horsehide trivias just stump me. I'm just sitting there going, where did this come from?
Right? Yeah, his group is just fantastic. I don't if you've ever been to a SABR convention and you've been to trivia night, it is the most well-run presentation of the entire event. He has done this now since I don't know when, and he's got it down to a science. It's amazing what he does. It really is. Which former Mustang was the first National League shortstop to win the Gold Glove and Silver Slugger Award in the same season?
Former Mustang, did you say?
What is that?
Former Mustang.
What does that mean?
College.
Correct. His college team's nickname was the Mustangs.
Was it Ozzie Smith?
What?
Ozzie Smith.
Got it. Andy got it. It's Ozzie Smith. Very good.
Oh my God.
When you said Mustangs, I was thinking, and I might have gotten it wrong, but there's a new documentary on Netflix where oh my God, not Jeff Bridges. Kurt Russell's father had a minor league team called the Mustangs.
The Portland team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The battered bastards of baseball. I saw
that's
it.
the one.
Yeah, I haven't watched
It's
it.
actually
There's
very
also
good.
a new Nolan
watched it
Ryan
a couple years
documentary.
ago. I didn't realize Bing Russell, he's an actor too.
Yep. And that's the Mavericks, not the Mustangs. But anyway.
Oh, right.
Close, yeah.
If you haven't watched the documentary, The Battered
Horses?
Bastards of Baseball, get on the Netflix and grab it. It is
excellent.
Absolutely fantastic. And Liz is spot on. The new Nolan Ryan documentary is also tremendous as well.
Oh yeah, that Nolan Ryan one was fantastic.
Which Hall of Famer struck out more than any other batter against Randy Johnson? The hint is he was rumored to speak in the third person at all times.
Ricky Henderson.
Ricky Henderson.
There you go. The giveaway hint.
That was the giveaway hint, right?
That was a great hint.
Ricky had 85 plate appearances against Randy Johnson and struck out 30 times. God, I hope Ricky Henderson isn't watching this. I'm going to get a letter.
I'm pretty sure
Ricky,
he's
man,
not.
We love you. We love you. Who is the only pitcher to log 10 years with a team in each league?
What was the question?
What is?
Who is the only pitcher to log 10 years each with a team in each league?
So one team in each league?
Oh.
One in the National League.
Jim Bunning?
No.
Bill
Good
Nico.
guess. No, came from Phil Nico.
Was it Charlie Hope?
Oh my God, you're good.
Wow.
Andy's right. 11 years in Los Angeles and 11 years in Texas.
Wow.
Wow. Andy, are you on this list with for Horsehide Trivia?
Not yet.
I'm wondering if he's. I think he's a ringer.
You get a lot of emails. Almost too much, but anyway.
Who is the only pitcher in the last half of the 20th century to throw 18 innings in one game?
Juan,
Is it
Was it
Warren Spahn?
No, it was not Warren Spahn.
Juan Marichal?
No, it was not Juan Marichal.
Is it
I
Gibson?
saw, I
Bob
just saw
Gibson?
that.
Ray is agonizing.
Bob
No,
Gibson.
I just saw this.
No.
Seaver?
Nope, it's not Tom Seaver.
Early, it's
Pittsburgh Pirates.
Oh.
Harvey Adams?
No,
That's the one I was thinking of.
Candelaria.
no, it is not Candelaria.
earlier.
July 11.
Bob Walk?
July 19th, 1955.
Bob Walk?
Vernon Law.
Vernon Law. There you
Wow.
go, Dixie. Making an emergency start on short rest. Law went the equivalent of 2 complete games. The Pirates were victorious. Law did not get the win.
Never happen again.
And that will never,
Yes.
ever
Yes.
happen again. This is spot on. I love horsehide trivia. If you're not part of that list, send me an email. I'll let you know how
Yeah,
to
sure.
subscribe to it. If you do a quick Google search, you can go out to their website and subscribe that way as well. You get emails from
can
them
see
at
you.
random
People can
times
see
throughout
you.
the day.
So
Sometimes
it's okay.
you're
I
sleeping.
mean, they're not going to meow.
I see a calico kitty.
That is
Yeah.
that is Gus the Saber Cat.
Oh, hi, Gus.
Hi.
Gus will get into many a meeting or
When I'm teaching remote.
Yep, when Molly's teaching remote or when I'm having a Zoom call with somebody, he'll come in and usually sit right here so that no one can see because he has to be front and center at all times.
Well, that's what he's paid
Yep.
to do.
You're
Yep.
correct, Dixie. That's exactly right.
One thing about horseside trivia, which I have, if you start with it and you are getting right answers 4 or 5 times a week, I would seek professional help.
The most I've gotten in a week is 2, so I think I'm okay. But I'll defer to my wife because I think my wife would probably say, with all this stuff that I'm doing now, I probably should get a little help. There she goes. She's nodding her head.
Do you win anything in these trivia things, or is it just the glory of,
No.
The glory of your correct answer and being
lording it over everybody?
That's
Whoever
right. You
gives the
get
first
denoted
right
as
answer gets
FC.
their name on the thing the next day, so you can see your name.
That's right. You can
I've
see your name.
I've gotten 3 of them
Yep.
in 4 or 5 years.
He does encourage research.
Mhm.
Yes.
So Jeff just put up a link to the episode of his podcast that he invited me to do. That was a lot of fun, and I really appreciated the time, Jeff. Thanks a lot for letting me do that. I really appreciate it. We will be meeting as a chapter again on Zoom on Monday, January 30th. We'll be meeting at 7 o'clock. We will have Michael Nice, who's the GM of the New Hampshire Fisher Cats, in to discuss. There you go. Dixie's got the shirt. You betcha. To discuss the upcoming season, maybe some of the changes at Delta Dental Stadium. He's asked me to ask everyone to bring their questions along. He wants it to be more of a question and answer period than him just talking. Lots of great stuff coming up in February and March. Watch the Monday messages, and our newsletter will be coming out next week. That'll detail all of that. We are scheduled out actually through April at this point. I have presenters coming from all around the country for us, and I think it's going to be a real dynamic time for our new chapter, and we want as many people from around the country as possible to join us in the fun. So I want to thank everyone.
I was going to add one thing. Sorry.
Go ahead,
sorry,
Ben.
Bruce.
I'm sorry. I didn't see the, your
Yeah,
hand. Go ahead.
no. So for anybody who's got a Fisher Cats shirt, I watched Addison Barger play for the Canadians, Vancouver, where I live in Canada, at single A, and then he moved up to the Fisher Cats last year. Now I believe he's been added to the Blue Jays Major League roster. So that was one of my
Awesome.
questions. I thought that was one of my questions actually that might be interesting for the talks next week, just because I saw him play as a single A prospect.
Got a chance to watch a couple of the Vancouver games this year on MILB TV. That's
Okay.
Beautiful, beautiful scene.
Well, the thing is, you got to come out to the stadium itself, because Nat Bailey Stadium and the whole romance of Nat Bailey Stadium is a long-time baseball venue with the Vancouver Mounties, with the Canadians. I enjoyed the Canadians more when it was a AAA franchise than a single A. I mean, the games you can see the difference, right? But it's still fun to go. I think the Vancouver Canadians thing, Bruce, is more of an experience as a baseball fan, maybe than strictly if you're looking for wanting to watch talent, right? Or watch developing talent, but just my
Like
opinion.
the Savannah Bananas.
Yeah.
And who are the Savannah Bananas?
They're
heard the name.
kind of like the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball.
Oh, okay.
They have a guy
don't-
on stilts. They do backflips and dance routines, and
Lots of entertainment is broken up by a baseball game now and then. I know
Hello?
people who live in Savannah and had season tickets to the Bananas for a couple of years.
they're going on tour this summer, but I
They
don't
are.
know exactly where.
And I've got another Zoom in 23 minutes.
Yes, we're going to wrap it up now. I just want to, like I say, thanks everybody for coming. We'll see you next week. Have a great night and stay safe
Thank you,
out there.
Bruce.
See you soon. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.